And joining us now to discuss the latest developments in Israel's multi-front war is Joe Truzman, a senior research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and editor of the Long War Journal. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start in Lebanon with the latest overnight strikes against Hezbollah's weapons depots in the Dahye, located under civilian buildings. You know, Israel is really continuing to target, to dismantle Hezbollah little by little. And so I want to ask, are there still any major targets that Israel needs to address? Because, you know, we are still seeing daily rocket attacks here in Israel. Is it realistic to think that the IDF can completely decimate this terror group?
I think if the IDF wants to decimate or eliminate all of Hezbollah's rockets, precision-guided missiles, and other weapons, it would take much longer time to do that. And I think right now the Israeli government's goal essentially is a limited conflict, okay? Specifically to remove Hezbollah from southern Lebanon, up to the Litani River, so the Israeli civilians that have been displaced during the war can return home. So I think this is it would be a different goal to remove all of Hezbollah's weapons. So this is why what we've been seeing now over the last few months, or actually over the more than a year now, is a steady stream of Hezbollah fire on Israeli territory.
And Israel seems optimistic and open to reaching a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah. Hezbollah, in turn, has said that it would reject any ceasefire proposal and that it will fight until their last soldier. But do you see an end in sight? And what are the points that Israel must insist upon in any ceasefire agreement?
One can always be hopeful for a ceasefire agreement, but we need to understand reality here. Ceasefire agreements are very tricky, right? Especially if there are multiple actors involved. At least according to reports, we're hearing that Tehran, Moscow, of course, Washington, D.C., Jerusalem, and Hezbollah are involved here. So negotiators need to get everybody to agree on a ceasefire here. So it's difficult, but Israel's goals, like I stated earlier, I think one of the biggest goals is to return the displaced civilians back to northern Israel. And it can't do that without Hezbollah leaving the southern Lebanon. So I think that's an important goal here more than anything. So am I optimistic it's going to happen? I think eventually it will. But I think one of the most difficult parts here is for Hezbollah to get Hezbollah or compel Hezbollah to agree to disconnect itself, right, from Hamas in Gaza. Because that's what they say. That's why they started this conflict with Israel, not to save or to help Palestinian civilians, but to save Hamas, okay? So that's the big thing. And to compel Hezbollah to do that, to disconnect itself from Hamas, it's not going to be easy, but we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Gaza, you know, the Biden-Harris administration threatened to withhold military supplies from Israel over humanitarian aid to Gaza. Now it's announced just yesterday that Israel has indeed complied and is providing sufficient aid, and so it will not be withholding weapons for now. I mean, what do you make of these continuous threats, and how are they impacting Israel's ability to wage this war against Hamas?
Right. I think it's very confusing. Well, on one hand, you have an ally that says that they're supporting Israel by sending weapons. But on the other hand, they're saying that, hey, we're going to withhold these weapons from you as well if you don't do A, B, and C. So it's been a very confusing relationship, especially during this war. And I'll tell you, Israel's enemies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran and other bad actors in the region, they notice this stuff, okay? They notice what's happening, especially within the relationship between Israel and the United States. For example, the threats to withhold weapons. So this is not a good thing. This has been a very tricky situation for both Israel and the United States during this war. So I think when there's a new administration that will be coming in January, the Trump administration, I think Israel is hopeful that these threats will stop. so Israel can complete its goals of not only dismantling Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but of course reaching a ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And I want to also address the head of the snake, Iran. The latest report is that Iran is going to be putting off its strike against Israel. It's a retaliatory strike. Now with Trump coming back into power, could we potentially see a preemptive Israeli strike, taking out the oil fields, taking out the nuclear sites? And what are your thoughts on this?
Well, at least right now, I think the Israelis sent the right message to Iran in their latest strike that happened just a few weeks ago. I think they they successfully hit the areas, the facilities, the sensitive facilities, sensitive Iranian facilities that they wanted to. So I don't think Israel right now is looking for another round of conflict, or rather direct conflict with Iran.
All right, well, Joe Truzman, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.